Good afternoon, everyone. History repeating, grains weighted against precious metals, petro ruble, gold-backed currency, oil, and also fertilizers and grain from Russia. Top exporter nitrogen fertilizers, we need that. Phosphorus too. European countries, inflation higher than the U.S. BlackRock President Larry Fink, entitled generation going to face shortages never experienced before. And all 8 major fertilizers higher some records. Government says we'll take care of the fertilizers, but Milton Friedman put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert and there'll be a sand shortage in 5 years. All hopes pinned on aquaculture, but then you look at the fish meal production, we're kind of at a standstill. How do you keep the same lifestyle after inflation? Speaking of fish, left, regular sushi, right? Oh, 2022. And the beehives were knocked over by gusty winds, changing jet streams. The new normal? Uncertainty is the new normal. War, pandemics, partisan politics, and Jerome Powell. There's a consistent sense of tension, fear, and anxiety since this pandemic. The stock market's gotten crushed, our national debt soared, and inflation pummeling most Americans. Since March 2020, gold's up 30% and silver doubling. Now we have Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo all forecasting gold well above $2,000 an ounce in 2022, and even potential price targets of $3,000. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 1-800-356-4470 for a free investor guide today. And with the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer from 2016 to present, click on the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video. And let's take a chapter in history. Right side, what do you think that piece of silver's exchangeable for? Because look at the iconography or the imagery on it. So on the left you see wheat or barley, and in the middle it looks like an instrument, entertainment. And then on the right side, it looks like the intertwining snakes, medicine. So I know that that piece of silver can be changed or exchanged for any of those. And then we look on the left side here. This is the Aksum Kingdom gold coinage, which, by the way, after the Romans collapsed, Aksum took over with the most precise weight in gold for their minted coins. But what's on there? Wheat or barley right in the center of the coin. So through history, from the denarius through the gold coinage of the Aksum, it was all related to food and what that metal could get you for sustenance, shelter, or medicine. Exchanged. So now we move into a post-US dollar world here. There's a lot of realizations to look in this slide. First, the Qatar energy minister says that you cannot replace Russian gas, period. And then we got the petro ruble or the Bitcoin ruble or gold-backed currency ruble, whatever you like to phrase it as, and which is now sending a tailspin into the paper physical trade, where the paper contracts being tens of thousands or multi-thousands above the physical in a vault somewhere, and that's increased 3x for physical delivery. And then swing into the wheat consumed around the world, top left there. Tons purchased 2020, Russian wheat going to these destinations. But then again, you know, the intertwining, whether it's food or oil, but now we got the fertilizers that are on top of that produce our foods. So without the fertilizer, we don't get the food. But without the food, we don't get the food. Without the oil to drive the tractors, we don't get the food. And it's all about the gold. Because see, Russia, top exporter of nitrogen fertilizers. And whatever way you look at it, from a gold-backed ruble or Bitcoin exchange medium, Russia controls an enormous amount of the products we need to keep our planet functioning at optimal levels. Fertilizers, You need that to grow the food. Lion's share production, Russia. But then not exporting the wheat, but the wheat, what around the wheat in the world, not given forth by Russia. Okay, and then the oil and the energy. So we need the energy to put into the farm tractors to get out into the fields to plow it. But then if they do, the fertilizer's not there, or the herbicides. So this huge breakdown wherever you look, dovetailing to right now not enough food. And now the messaging is clear across the planet. Food prices up, food shortages, digital rationing cards, inbound. So simple math, Russia and Ukraine export 30% of the world's exportable grains destined to other countries. Now we're going to cut that production in half in Ukraine. But keep in mind, just 2 weeks ago, the USDA said it was down 30%. Now we have an agricultural minister coming out and saying, whoa, they're not even going to grow 50%. Half of the production. So there's going to be no available grains out of export regions here, and the Black Sea is still blockaded. So looks like food's cut off from this region. So 30%, and then we go into the fertilizer and all these other supply chain bottlenecks. But then off of Ag Facts, look at this. All 8 of the major fertilizers are higher. All of them. So now we have the fuel rising in price. The fertilizers rising in price. And we're supposed to think that our lives are going to stay the same when the 2 most important things to keep a civilization functioning are not there and out of the hands of many because it's too expensive, that our world's just going to continue uninterrupted. Purposeful chaos, is this a planned event? I'm still asking myself the same questions. Why are not the farm inputs in the hands of farmers right now that are planting, tilling their fields, and getting ready to plant? Everywhere across the planet, there's shortages. Why is that? For the most important thing for our planet, just asking. Because to do more math here, plus 3% globally, like that's the thing. This year, the planet is going to need 3% more fertilizers because of growth of population, more need, than it was last year. But we're going into a severe decline in fertilizer availability. We needed 3% just to keep up with increase in keeping the status quo moving forward. But now we're going to be minus how many X percent coming out of Russia, and forecasts were 6 months ago that we were going down something like 13% availability globally for fertilizers before this. There was bottlenecks in supply chains. So now I'll come over to Progressive Farmer, and these are the kind of headlines you don't really want to read all in a row like this. Fertilizer concerns coming out of Russia, Ukraine. World nitrogen demand increasing but higher prices. Fertilizer costs way up. That's from Mosaic. Sanctions affecting world potash supplies. And then Bayer, glyphosate production reduction. And here's an outlier. Talking to corn and soybean farmers here going, whoa, this is the first time we've ever seen fertilizer is simply not available. And some chemicals are not available. Okay, that right back to the Bayer, right back to the seed supply, right back to the fertilizers. If American farmers are saying these kind of statements that they're not getting the inputs they need, what happens after everything's grown? And it needs to go on rail to transit to another area that's onward. Beef production, dairy production, whatever it is. Now, what if the rail lines are starting to break down because they don't have enough crews out there to maintain or even deliver? What if there's a higher cost arbitrage somewhere? Oh, we'll kick that shipment to the side for a little bit because we'll get X amount more if we move this cargo over here right now. Okay, well, there's a shortage there now. Okay. So are rail lines going to work in conjunction with our country to keep grains moving to the end user to get us the foods we need? Or are they going to start moving Walmart junk around the country at a higher price on the delivery rates. This is what we're starting to see. These empty store shelves coming around. Now it's frozen foods. Before it was canned foods, then it was dried foods, then it was pasta, and now it's this. Because this video apparently is out of Russia. People rushing to get cooking oil as they brought it out on the pallet. We've seen this again and again during hurricanes when they bring fresh water out on the pallet. Louisiana, Florida, whatever. There's lots of these videos for hurricane preparedness, people jumping in to get whatever they can. But this is cooking oil. Now, which region in Russia was this taken? I don't have that. But this is a recent video that was sent to me and said, look at the not Black Friday ferociousness of trying to get a new flat screen TV, but this is where people have gone to get basic necessities like cooking oil so they can still eat. Now, what happens when there's only 3 bottles and all these people are here? And perusing the news lately, it seems that finally the administration here in the U.S. has caught on and said, whoa, we need to do something with the fertilizers. Why don't we centralize fertilizer control, and the U.S. government will take it over and it'll start to produce for the farmers and we'll get everything back in order again. Hey, you guys, don't talk about fertilizer shortages anymore. Government's in control. And I'll bring you to the statement right here from Milton Friedman, economist. If you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in 5 years, there'd be a shortage of sand. And you want to put them in control of the fertilizer supply of America. And then we could take a look at how centralized currency issuance is working for everybody in their benefit. Not. This is in Europe, not the US. Spanish CPI was actually 9.8, which pretty much matches on this chart right near 10%. But they were forecasting like 7.6. So everything off this chart is far above what was forecast. And the U.S. is pushing pretty much the same, maybe 0.1% or 0.25% lower. And if you believe this from the official government figures, you need to go to Shadow Stats and look where it's literally double. So if I were to look at this and follow Shadow Stats, Spanish inflation is running somewhere around 19%. And that'll be across the board for every country you look at. So when Larry Fink makes statements, he's the CEO of BlackRock. When he talks, not that you like him or believe in the company's principles, you need to listen because they control so much on this planet. Literally, the largest asset holder on the planet. So when they talk, things move after. So this direct quote right here from the president of BlackRock saying, entitled generation has never had to sacrifice, is going to face shortages they have never experienced before. We've had a very entitled generation that has never had to sacrifice. Put your seatbelts on, last paragraph, put your seatbelts on because it's something we haven't seen. So they're saying, brace position. We're about to crash into something. So think about the hardships that they're talking about. So in my recollection, a hardship like that they're describing has not occurred since the Great Depression or entry into World War II, where Victory Gardens were a thing, everybody was on rations, and the world spun to focus in on the war effort. Everybody had to do hardship. And the Great Depression was something I really don't want to personally live through. 1930s, so we'll say mid-30s to mid-40s, like that era of time. So we're looking back 85 years. And that is the fourth turning. So to see this here where never experienced before shortages and hardships are coming for this generation, it's not just for them. It's all of us. Because I don't remember living through a time where there's no food on the plate because our country has run out of food and we're on rationing cards. Rationing cards are going to be something that people are going to have a very difficult time dealing with, and they've always had availability to endless amounts of products and foods. And now they're going to have to do without, shrink the belt. You're limited to this. You can only buy that. It's going to be a tough shift. So I could see how the preconditioning was done during the last 2 years to get you to change behavior. Whether you liked it or not, others enforced it. So I can see something similar coming, especially when it's food. And how do I maintain the same lifestyle after inflation? Well, I love sushi on the left side. Used to eating that, but I guess I'm going to have to readjust 2022, 23. Crackers and rice. Same, but different. Speaking of fisheries, the aquaculture projections for world fish meal production all the way to 2030. So they've already gamed it out, like how much fish production is going to actually arise, because this is one of the saviors. If you're not going to go to the lab-grown meat, you can go to fish proteins because it requires far less space to raise the same amount of protein that it does a cow or a pig. So when I look out, it should be gargantuan production. Millions of tons should have skyrocketed from here, but it's not. And I look at the same thing here. This is world capture fisheries on the yellow at the bottom, or the orange, pretty much flat line. And then the aquaculture production is the blue increasing. But that's going to literally have to go vertical like everything else has, from the gold to the nickel to the oil to the fertilizers to the grain prices and everything else in between that are base staples went vertical, but this is not. So I'm seeing a little bit of a disconnect here. And the annual growth rate of world aquaculture here, all the way to 2030, it seems like it's shrinking. Like down to nothing. Percentage growth rate, if that goes further, if you're going to project that out, they're like at 1% at 2030. And it's great to be self-sustainable, etc., but I lost my beehives because of wind. So this is the wind that blew the bee boxes down. These three were right here, but the wind's coming this direction now from like the southwest. But obviously these bee boxes were here, so they had to have been blown this direction. So the wind has kind of changed around. I don't think it was a predator, because they look very scattered. If it was a bear, it would have gotten in and tried to get the honey. So it's just the wind, and I can't believe it must have been a downburst and flowed down this hill and just knocked them off. As you can see, it's not as windy now as it was earlier. I hope you can hear everything clearly, but that's what happened. So I got to put these back on the frames again. And for a quick rest, compost, mushroom compost. I got this delivered. It took 4 trucks. It's 15 cubic yards per pile here, so there's about 60 cubic yards of this mushroom compost. I was talking to Dennis Delaurier earlier, and he was saying mix it 1-to-1 to get some of the best fluffiness if you're going to do microgreens and plant early plants to allow them to get a really good start. But the wind is here, and you can see the tarps got blown back already, so along with the bee boxes, the tarps getting blown up. I'm going to have to try to secure it a little bit better before the rains tonight. But this is about how much you're going to need if you're going to do serious gardening coming into this 2022 end fiasco that we're facing. It's all about sharing ideas and knowledge, because those beehives, they're just not the same. A couple of the actual frames inside were broken. Have to replace that. And, what could I have done differently? Because where it was, that spot had not been affected by wind before, this first time. So I'm learning that what you thought might be protected when things go an order of scale higher, it's not. So, how many orders of magnitude up do you need to go before you realize that, things that you have around you are not as secure due to increasing wind velocity, wind speeds. And a quick fact on cilantro right here. Remove lead, mercury, and aluminum from your physical vessel. Plus, it tastes good on foods. And the weekend's coming, so think about what you can wild forage, buy at your local nursery, or think about even a small plot of garden so you can get some yield. Positive yield is good yield. So anything you can get out to help your family, yourselves, those around you, your communities, whatever, get more self-sufficient. Understand you can grow something. Try it. Make the mistakes, learn from it, but put something in the garden. It is the weekend, plenty of time to try to innovate a little bit. Just challenge yourself to put one thing of food production into motion, or actually into production this weekend. And also storable foods, My Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030. If you like this kind of content, take a look at the website. Everything you buy, a small percentage comes back to help fund this channel And Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast, 30 minutes on a go, talking about some of these same issues, a little more depth, a little more breadth of the information that's shared between guests on these 30-minute segments. But I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Everything for tonight's images and stories are linked in the description box below. And I'll see you next video.